She heard him before she ever knew his name. A voice in the wind, a howl that called her from the darkness, and when she followed it through the snow, she found the one thing more dangerous than the storm. King who could break her world with a single touch. Chapter 1. The Howl in the Storm. The wind tore at her cloak, whipping icy needles against her face, but Alara didn't flinch. Every step she took through the snow was deliberate, guided not by sight but by sound, the distant, haunting howl that pierced the blizzard like a cry from another world. She stopped, heart hammering against her ribs. The howl came again, closer this time, vibrating through the frozen trees and the frozen ground beneath her boots. Most would have been terrified, lost, buried in the blinding white storm. But Alara was not most people. She had been blind since birth, yet in this storm, her other senses were alive, sharper, keener than any eye could ever be. The smell of the forest was raw, bitter and biting, carrying with it hints of pine frost and something else, something wild, something powerful. She shivered, not from cold but from instinct deep and primal, telling her that this was no ordinary wolf. Hello? Her voice trembled, not from fear but uncertainty. I hear you. I'm coming, silence answered. Then a low growl, followed by a howl that was almost human in its anguish. Alara took a step forward, each footfall crunching softly against the thick snow. Her hands brushed against the frost-laden trunks of trees, feeling the jagged grooves of bark, tracing her path through the blinding storm. The howl came again, stronger, commanding, and strangely familiar. Her heartbeat stuttered, a mix of awe and fear surging through her veins. Something in that sound called to her, pulling at her very soul, as though it knew her deepest secrets. She had been wandering the northern forest for hours, fleeing from a village that had rejected her for being cursed, for being different. Being blind had made her life a constant battle, a life defined by whispers, pity, and cruel jokes. But here in the snow and storm she felt free, alive. A sudden snap of a branch made her freeze. Her ears detected the subtle shift in the air, movement deliberate and measured. She pivoted slightly, arms outstretched to catch anything that might come too close. Her pulse raced as she whispered into the storm. I mean no harm. I'm just following you. The white wolf's howl answered, closer now, almost as if it had been waiting for her. And then, without warning, a massive figure emerged from the veil of snow. A wolf, pure white, eyes glowing faintly in the storm's gray light. Its fur shimmered with frost, and every step it took left a footprint that seemed almost too large for reality. Alara gasped, instinctively stepping back, her cane digging into the snow. She had imagined many wolves in her life, but none like this. This was a creature of legend, majestic, terrifying, and undeniably aware of her presence. The wolf stopped, tilting its head as if studying her. Then it did something unexpected. It howled again, softer this time. A coaxing sound that vibrated through the cold, straight into her chest. Her knees weakened. She didn't know why, but she felt compelled to move closer. Who are you? She whispered, voice cracking. Are you a wolf? The creature's eyes glowed warmer now, almost golden, as though recognizing her. Then, without hesitation, it turned and padded into the forest, pausing only briefly as if urging her to follow. Alara hesitated. Every instinct screamed danger. But something deeper, something she couldn't name, urged her forward. Step by step she followed the white wolf's trail, guided by the sound of its soft, rhythmic movements and the occasional low growl that seemed almost like a warning. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time lost all meaning in the storm. Her fingers brushed against snow-laden branches, her boots sank into deep drifts, and still she pressed on. The wolf never looked back, but it didn't flee either. It was a guide, a phantom leading her through the blinding white, and then suddenly the wolf vanished. Alara stopped, heart thundering. She spun in place, cane tapping against snow and ice, listening desperately. The storm roared around her, muffling every sound. Panic clawed at her chest. She had no idea where she was, no idea which way to turn. Hello? She called again, louder, voice cracking. Please. From the shadows, a deep, commanding voice rumbled, low and terrifyingly close. Why do you follow me? Alara froze, every nerve in her body screaming. The voice, it wasn't the wolf's, it was human, but something in it. Raw, primal, undeniable. She swallowed her fear and forced her voice out, trembling. I heard you. I followed the howl. Please, I'm blind. I can't see. Blind, the voice echoed, softening, but not entirely. Yet you came this far through the storm. Her chest heaved. I had to know who you were. A presence loomed behind her, massive, imposing, almost suffocating. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. Her instincts screamed danger, yet also safety, strangely. A pause. Then, few survive the northern blizzards alone, let alone follow me willingly. Ilara shivered. I don't know why I'm not afraid. A low growl rolled through the air, vibrating in the snow around her. And then, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from it, a single word cut through the storm. Omega. Her blood ran cold. The word carried power, authority, and a strange intimacy. She didn't understand it, but she would. One day she would understand exactly who or what she had followed through the blizzard. For now, all she knew was this. The White Wolf's howl had led her straight into the den of the Alpha King, and she was already ensnared in his world. Chapter 2. The Alpha's Shadow. The snowstorm had slowed, but the world around Ilara was still a swirling white void. She could no longer hear the soft padding of the White Wolf, but the voice that had spoken her title, Omega, hung in the air like a physical presence. Her heartbeat thrummed painfully in her ears. Who are you? She whispered, the cane trembling in her grip. Her voice was small, fragile, yet stubborn. Fear and curiosity tangled within her, clawing for dominance. I am the one who claims, the voice said, rich and commanding, yet laced with a strange curiosity. And you are lost. Ilara swallowed hard. Lost, that was an understatement. She had followed the howl into the heart of the northern wilderness without maps, without guide, without sight. She had no idea where she was, no idea what creatures lurked in the shadows. And now she was standing before someone or something that exuded authority so palpable it pressed against her chest. Her fingers brushed the snow at her feet as she tried to orient herself. I'm not lost, she said, though her voice wavered. I know where I'm going. You think you know, the voice replied, closer now. Warmth brushed her cheek and her body stiffened. It wasn't threatening, but it was overwhelmingly intense. A scent of frost, pine, and something wild, almost dangerous, filled her senses. Her pulse raced, instinctively aware that the world she had known was nothing compared to the presence before her. A low growl rolled from the shadows, and then the White Wolf emerged again. Its fur shimmered, eyes golden and unyielding. The creature circled her, sniffing, examining, as if measuring her very soul. Ilara froze, heart in her throat, yet she felt no fear, only an odd magnetic pull that demanded trust she didn't yet understand. You follow the wolf, the voice said, closer still. Now she could feel the heat emanating from him, like standing too near a fire on a frozen night. Why do you follow the lost, the wild, the untamed? I heard the howl, she said softly, trying to meet whatever gaze she could only sense. It called to me. I didn't know why, but I couldn't stop myself. There was silence for a long moment. Then a faint chuckle, deep and almost amused, rumbled through the trees. Few are drawn to me, yet you are different. Different, she echoed. I'm blind. I'm not strong, not special. Her voice broke. I'm nothing. You are something, he said, and the power in his words made her knees weak. Something rare. Something needed, Ilara shivered. She didn't understand him, didn't understand the weight of what he said, but deep inside a seed of awareness grew. This was no ordinary being. This was a force, a king, a predator. And yet, there was something in his tone, a strange softness that called to her soul. The wolf padded closer, brushing against her leg. She froze, surprised by the warmth and weight of it. It wants me? She murmured, uncertain. The sound of the Alpha King's laughter, low and intoxicating, echoed around her. Yes, he said simply, but it does not just want. It senses you. As I do. The words made her blood run hot despite the freezing wind. Her hands gripped her cane tighter. Why me? She asked, her voice small yet resolute. I'm nothing. You are everything, he replied, the growl in his tone both possessive and commanding. You are the Omega, the lost one, the one the pack waits for whether it knows it or not. Omega. The word reverberated in her mind, heavy, unfamiliar, intoxicating. She had never known her place in the world, never been wanted, never been needed, and now, suddenly, the idea that she was more than her blindness, more than her fear, struck her like a spark to dry wood. I don't understand, she whispered, voice breaking. I don't understand any of this. Then you will learn, he said. You will learn what it means to follow, and what it means to be claimed. Her fingers brushed the snow once more, hesitant, then resolute. She felt the wolf at her side, the alpha's presence behind her. Step by step, she followed the instincts that had guided her through the storm. Step by step, she followed the unknown power that called her forward. Hours or maybe minutes passed. Snow drifted around them in silent, crystalline waves. Yet the air seemed charged, as if waiting for something monumental to unfold. She could feel the alpha's eyes on her, watching, testing, guarding. The wolf's presence remained loyal, a silent guardian and guide. And then from somewhere deeper in the forest came a sound she would never forget. The unmistakable, primal roar of a pack, deep and resonant, echoing across the frozen landscape. The ground seemed to vibrate beneath her feet. The Alpha King stepped closer, his breath hot against her neck, his words low and intimate. "They are mine," he whispered. "And now, so are you." Ilara's heart stuttered. The weight of the words, the power behind them, made her dizzy. She didn't understand what it meant, but she knew one thing. Her life, the life she had always known, had ended the moment she followed that howl. The storm around them seemed to pause, the blizzard's fury stilled by the tension between them. The wolf at her side nudged her gently, a reminder of the world she had entered, a world of power, dominance, and danger. And somewhere deep in her chest, a spark of something new. Fear, yes, but also desire and a strange, magnetic pull toward the man she could not see, but already felt entwined with. The Alpha King had revealed himself without unveiling his name, without showing his face. Yet in that blizzard, in that frozen wilderness, Ilara felt the undeniable truth. She had followed the howl not into danger, but into destiny, and destiny, as she would soon learn, was far more merciless and far more consuming than she could ever imagine. Chapter 3. Into the Wolf's Den. The blizzard had faded into a gentle snowfall like feathers drifting from a cloud. The forest, once a chaotic white storm, now seemed almost serene, deceptively calm. Yet Ilara's heart hammered, a relentless drum of fear, curiosity, and something deeper, something unnameable. The Alpha King was close behind her. She could feel his presence like heat in the frozen air, like gravity pulling her forward. The white wolf led the way, its massive paws pressing silent prints into the fresh snow. Every so often it would glance back, eyes golden, almost approving, almost protective. Ilara shivered, not from cold, but from the intensity of the moment. She had no idea where they were going. She could not see the towering trees, the snow-covered paths, the hidden dangers. Yet every instinct told her that this path, this journey, was hers to take. The Alpha King's voice came, low and commanding, like wind over ice. "You are strong, stronger than you know." Blind yet unafraid, most would have turned back long before this. Ilara swallowed, cane gripping tightly in her hands. I didn't have a choice," she whispered. "The howl. It called to me. And you answered," he said approvingly. There was no warmth in his tone, yet no cruelty either, only a raw, undeniable acknowledgement of her courage. Few would. They moved in silence for hours, snow crunching beneath boots and paws. Then the air changed. It thickened with scent of musk, earth, and something else. Something raw, commanding, and powerful. Ilara froze, feeling it settle around her like a blanket she could not escape. "The den," the Alpha King said, voice reverent, almost a whisper now. "We are close." Ilara's chest tightened. A den for wolves? For the Alpha? She had no idea what to expect. Her mind raced through stories of wild packs and feral creatures, but she was unprepared for the reality she would soon encounter. Suddenly, the forest opened into a massive clearing. The snow gave way to a cavernous expanse, hidden beneath overhanging cliffs guarded by jagged rocks. Steam rose from a frozen river that wound like a serpent through the terrain. The air was dense, earthy, and primal. Her hands trembled as she stepped forward, guided by the wolf at her side. And then she heard them. The pack. Hundreds of growls, howls, and snarls vibrating through the air and snow. They were everywhere, circling, observing, waiting. Ilara froze, every muscle tight with fear. "They are watching me," she whispered. "Yes," the Alpha King replied, stepping beside her. His voice was softer now, almost intimate. "They can sense you. Your scent. Your heartbeat. The wolf told them you are marked?" Ilara's stomach churned. "Marked?" "You are Omega," he said simply. and they will know it before I even declare it. Your presence shifts the balance of the pack. They sense it, and so do I. She swallowed, every nerve on edge. The reality of her situation was starting to sink in. She was not just in the wilderness following a wolf through snow. She had walked directly into the domain of an Alpha King, a world of power, dominance, and rules she did not yet understand. The white wolf nudged her, and she instinctively placed her hand on its fur. The warmth of the creature reassured her in ways she did not expect. The Alpha King's eyes seemed to burn through the storm of snowflakes, locked on her every movement, studying her, testing her, claiming her even without touch. Do they hurt people? She asked cautiously, voice trembling. He chuckled, low and dark. Only if they sense weakness. Only if they are challenged. His gaze softened, though only slightly, when he added, They will not harm you. Not while I am near. Alara's pulse slowed just enough to think, why me, why now? The Alpha King's eyes softened, but there was still that intensity, that heat that made her breath catch. Because you were meant to find me. Because the Omega is rare. Because... He hesitated, voice dropping to a whisper. Because I need you. Alara's knees wobbled. She had never been needed before, never truly wanted, never understood her worth. And now, in this frozen den, surrounded by the silent power of the pack and the commanding presence of the Alpha King, she felt something she had never felt before. Possibility. The pack shifted as if reading the tension between them, growling low but not aggressively. The white wolf circled her once more, then settled at her feet, a guardian and a guide. You will stay here, the Alpha King said, stepping closer, his presence pressing around her like an invisible barrier. Tonight you will learn the rules. Tomorrow, you will begin your place in the pack. Alara swallowed hard. Rules? Yes, he said, voice dark and smooth. The pack obeys me. You obey me, and you will learn to obey yourself. She nodded, not fully understanding but trusting the pull of destiny that had led her here. Somehow, somewhere, the wolf's howl had guided her true. And now, she was standing on the threshold of a world that was far larger, far more dangerous, and far more intimate than she could have ever imagined. The Alpha King stepped back, allowing the wolf to guide her into a sheltered space within the den. Steam from the river swirled around them, warming the frostbitten air. The pack remained outside, silent and watchful, yet somehow protective. Alara sank to the ground, exhausted, snow melting against her cloak. The wolf curled beside her, warm and heavy, and she let herself lean against it. The Alpha King remained standing, watching, almost regal in his posture, the storm outside fading into the darkness. You are safe, he said softly, for now. But know this, nothing here is without cost. Everything comes with challenge. Everything comes with power. Alara's chest tightened. And me? You are part of it, he replied. Whether you accept it or not. Her fingers brushed against the wolf's fur. She could feel the pulse of life beneath its coat, the heartbeat of the pack, the presence of the Alpha King looming over her. And in that moment, amidst the frozen den, the snow and the wolves, she understood one undeniable truth. Her life had changed forever. The storm outside had ended. But the storm inside, the one of desire, fear, and destiny, had only just begun. Chapter 4. The Trials of the Den. The den smelled of earth, fur, and something ancient, power that had existed long before she was born. Alara's fingers traced the contours of the stone floor as she took hesitant steps, guided by the white wolf at her side. It nudged her forward, a steady reminder that she was not alone, even in the intimidating presence of the Alpha King and his pack. The Alpha King remained a silent shadow at the edge of the den, observing her like a hawk. His eyes burned with unspoken authority, yet also with curiosity. Each movement she made, each breath she took seemed to hold significance to him. She felt exposed yet strangely drawn to his presence, a magnetic pull she didn't understand. Sit, he commanded, voice low but firm. Alara obeyed immediately. Dropping onto the soft layer of fur the wolf had curled around her, the warmth seeped into her frozen limbs, a stark contrast to the biting cold of the storm outside. Her heartbeat was erratic, not from exertion, but from the overwhelming sense of being under scrutiny, of being chosen. You are Omega, he said, circling her slowly, but you are also inexperienced. You do not understand the rules of the pack, the hierarchy, or the strength required to survive here. You will learn, Alara swallowed, I want to learn, she said softly. She did not know why, but something in her voice felt truer than anything she had ever said in her life. I want to understand. He stopped, close enough that she could feel the heat of his presence. Good, he murmured, low and dangerous. Because you will have to, not just for yourself, but for the pack. Your strength or weakness affects every one of them. Her stomach twisted. The responsibility was enormous. She had survived in the human world because she had been cautious, careful, and self-reliant. But here, she realized she was stepping into a system that demanded submission to rules she did not yet understand. And yet, strangely, she did not recoil. She wanted to rise to the challenge. The wolf at her side growled softly, alerting her to a subtle shift in the den. The pack was moving closer, forming a semicircle around her and the Alpha King. She could hear the growls and whispers of fur brushing against stone, the subtle clicking of claws on rock. They were watching her, testing her. Do not fear them, the Alpha King said, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. They will test you. They will challenge you, but they will not harm you unless I give permission. Alara nodded, heart pounding. I understand, she whispered. Good. His eyes narrowed, piercing her very soul. Then you will begin your first trial. Her breath caught. Trial? She had not expected anything like this. The wolf nudged her hand, a subtle reminder that she was not alone. She pressed her palm against its fur, drawing strength from the warmth and steady presence beside her. You must prove yourself, the Alpha King said. Not just to me, but to the pack. You will demonstrate courage, instinct, and trust. Fail, and the consequences are unpleasant. Alara's chest tightened. Fear surged, but beneath it a flicker of resolve. I will try, she said, voice steadier than she felt. Good. He gestured, and the den shifted as a portion of the pack stepped forward. Wolves of various sizes, ages, and colors, all powerful and alert. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light of the den. She could sense their strength, their skill, their readiness. They were warriors of the wild, loyal to their alpha, and they would not be easily impressed. The white wolf stepped beside her, shoulders brushing hers as if to say, You are not alone. She placed her hand on its head, feeling its warmth, its heartbeat, its reassurance. Step forward, the Alpha King commanded. Show them you can navigate even blind. Show them instinct, show them strength. Alara's legs trembled, but she obeyed. She stepped carefully into the center of the den, guided by the wolf's presence at her side. The pack shifted, growling low, circling her like predators observing prey, or perhaps testing a new member of their hierarchy. You may touch, feel, and sense, the Alpha King said. You may not speak unless spoken to. Trust only your instincts and me. The first challenge was simple in concept but terrifying in practice. Wolves lunged toward her in controlled, precise movements, not to harm but to test reflexes, to test composure. She froze once, startled by the speed and accuracy of their attacks, but the white wolf nudged her forward, guiding her around their paths. Breath came in ragged gasps. Fear threatened to overwhelm her, but she focused. Each movement, each instinct became a tool. She felt the Alpha King's gaze, steady and unyielding, directing her focus even as he never touched her. Hours, or perhaps minutes, time lost all meaning, passed in a blur of controlled chaos. She stumbled, faltered, nearly gave in to panic, but each time the white wolf was there, grounding her, reminding her of her strength, guiding her through the trials. Finally, the Alpha King's voice cut through the tension. Enough! Alara sank to her knees, trembling, soaked in sweat and snow, heart racing as adrenaline coursed through her veins. The pack circled her once more, then settled, eyes watching, approving, yet wary. You survived, the Alpha King said. His tone was both approval and warning. But this is only the beginning. Your place here is earned, not given. Every day will test you. Every day will demand more than you know you possess. Alara lifted her head, hearing the pride and the danger in his voice. I understand, she whispered. He stepped closer, the heat of his presence surrounding her. And know this, Omega, he murmured, voice dark and intimate. You are mine, and you will learn sooner than you think what that truly means. Her breath caught. The words were not a threat, but neither were they entirely gentle. There was ownership, power, and something else, desire raw and undeniable. The pack settled, the den quiet once more, yet the tension remained. Alara realized that she had not only survived the trial, but had entered a world far larger and more dangerous than anything she had ever known. And standing before her, The Alpha King, unseen yet overwhelmingly present, was a force she could neither resist nor ignore. The trials had begun, but so had the pull of destiny, and the stirrings of something far more intimate than she had ever experienced. Chapter 5. The Bond of Blood and Snow. The den was quiet now, but silence in the Alpha King's world was never peace. Elara could feel the weight of every eye upon her, the white wolf at her side, the pack surrounding them, and most of all, the Alpha King standing just beyond reach, an invisible tether pulling at her very soul. Her body ached from the trial, muscles tense and exhausted, but adrenaline kept her upright. Each breath she drew was sharp, biting in her chest, yet she refused to collapse completely. The Alpha King's gaze, unyielding and intense, made her spine straighten. She could not, and would not, look weak before him. "You have potential," he said finally, voice smooth but commanding. "More than I expected." Elara's heart skipped a beat. Praise from him was rare. She felt it like sunlight piercing through a storm. "Thank you," she murmured, unsure if she deserved it. "You are welcome," he replied, stepping closer. Each movement of his was deliberate, precise, an embodiment of control and power. But potential is not enough. Strength is earned, loyalty is earned, and trust must be tested. Her pulse quickened. She had survived physical trials, but this was something deeper, something intangible yet undeniable. She sensed it in the way his presence seemed to surround her, like ice and fire combined, like the storm that had led her here now incarnated in a man. Will I survive this?" she whispered almost to herself. He tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "If you are clever, yes. If you falter, the pack will not hesitate to teach you lessons." His words were calm, but the underlying threat made her shiver. Yet beneath the fear, a strange thrill surged. She had never felt so alive, so needed, so seen. The white wolf padded closer, brushing against her legs. Its warmth steadied her, grounding her in the moment. She rested her hand on its head, drawing strength from the animal that had guided her through the storm, that had protected her in the den, that had somehow made the impossible feel possible. "You are bonded," the Alpha King said, voice lower now, intimate and almost reverent. The wolf senses it. "You are not alone in this journey. It is not just your strength they test, it is your connection, your instinct to trust, to follow, to submit, and to accept." Elara's chest tightened. The word submit echoed in her mind, unfamiliar yet electrifying. She had spent her life fighting, resisting, surviving in a world that pitied her, mocked her, or ignored her. And now, here in the snow, in the den, surrounded by power and wolves, she realized that submission did not mean weakness. It meant trust. It meant unity. It meant belonging. "Am I ready for that?" she asked, voice trembling. "You will be," he said, his eyes burning into hers, commanding yet patient. "The pack will teach you. I will teach you. And the bond between Omega and Alpha is not just strength. It is destiny. Blood and snow, fire and frost, two forces intertwined, whether you understand it or not." Elara swallowed, struggling to process the enormity of his words. She felt small, fragile, yet also powerful in ways she could not name. The wolf pressed its head against her shoulder, grounding her, affirming her presence. The Alpha King's gaze lingered on her, intense, intimate, and she felt it like a caress she could not see, yet could feel deep in her chest. "Come," he said suddenly, stepping back and motioning toward a cluster of larger wolves. "You will meet the others. Each will test you in ways you do not yet understand. Each will push you to your limits." Elara hesitated, then rose, cane tapping lightly against the stone. She followed him, the white wolf at her side, heart pounding, breath ragged. The other wolves watched silently, muscles coiled, eyes gleaming with intelligence and wariness. "Do not fear them," the Alpha King murmured. "They are not enemies. They are part of your pack, your allies. But do not forget, they are loyal to me first, and loyalty is not given lightly." The first wolf approached, a massive creature with fur dark as midnight and eyes like molten gold. It sniffed her cautiously, growling softly, testing her resolve. Elara froze, sensing the predator's power, the raw energy coursing through its muscles. "Show confidence," the Alpha King instructed, his voice low in her ear. "Show respect. And above all, do not flinch." She straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin, and met the wolf's gaze with courage she barely felt. Her hand brushed the white wolf's head at her side, a silent pledge of trust. The dark wolf circled her, growled, then stepped back, apparently satisfied. One down, the Alpha King murmured. Many more to go. Hours passed as Alara faced trial after trial, wolves leaping, sniffing, testing her courage, her instincts, her connection to the pack and to the Alpha. Each encounter left her trembling, exhausted yet strangely exhilarated. Every glance from the Alpha King, every close presence sent shivers down her spine, a mixture of fear, desire, and awe. By the time the final trial ended, she sank to the ground, breathing hard, muscles trembling. The pack circled her, quiet now, acknowledging her survival. The white wolf pressed against her once more, warm and loyal, grounding her in the whirlwind of adrenaline and emotion. "You have done well," the Alpha King said, his voice low, dangerous and intimate. "Few survive the first day and keep their strength, their composure, and their bond intact. But you have begun to prove yourself." Alara's chest heaved and she met his gaze for the first time fully, not just feeling his presence, but sensing his power, his authority, his raw intensity. Something deep inside her stirred, a connection she could not ignore. "You are mine," he murmured, leaning closer, his breath warm against her face. "And you will learn what it truly means to be claimed, not just by me but by the pack, by destiny, and by the bond that ties us together." Her heart raced, a wild rhythm in the frozen den. She did not fully understand it yet, but she felt it. A pull, a bond, a connection she could not resist, no matter how hard she tried. The Alpha King had not just claimed the den or the pack. He had claimed her very soul, and for the first time in her life, Alara did not resist. The bond had begun. Chapter 6. Secrets Beneath the Frost. The den had settled into a quiet rhythm, but Alara could feel that nothing here remained truly still. Every breath she took, every step she made was measured, observed, and tested. The pack had accepted her cautiously, and the white wolf remained a constant presence at her side, warm and steady, a living bridge between her and the Alpha King. The Alpha King watched from the shadows, silent and commanding, his presence like a cold flame that refused to be ignored. She could feel his eyes on her always, even when he did not speak, even when he was far enough away that his voice could not reach her. She felt the weight of his authority pressing against her chest. "You have endured the trials," he said finally, stepping from the shadows. His voice was low, velvety, and carried the power of command that made her knees tremble. "But endurance is only the beginning. There are truths here, secrets beneath the frost that you must learn." Alara's pulse quickened. "Secrets?" she whispered. "What kind of secrets?" "The kind that test the soul," he replied, circling her slowly. His presence was overwhelming, magnetic. Every step he took seemed to echo in her mind. Every movement calculated to awaken instincts she had never known she possessed. The pack is more than strength, more than loyalty. It is history, lineage, power, and blood. She swallowed hard, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the icy den. "Blood?" he nodded. "The pack is ancient. Every alpha leaves a mark. Every omega carries a destiny. You are part of it now, whether you realize it or not. Your presence changes the balance here." Her hand instinctively went to the white wolf, feeling the warmth and the pulse of life against her palm. I don't understand," she admitted. "I only know that I feel something I can't explain." "That is the bond," he said, voice dropping to a whisper, intimate and commanding. "It is the link between Alpha and Omega. It is more than trust. It is desire, instinct, and recognition. It is primal, eternal, and undeniable." Alara's heart raced. She had never been recognized, never been desired, never been called necessary. And yet here she was, claimed, observed, tested. She felt raw vulnerability and intense attraction stir inside her, emotions she had long buried under fear and loneliness. The Alpha King stepped closer, his presence wrapping around her like a force she could not resist. "Come," he commanded softly. "There is someone you must meet." She hesitated, then followed. The pack parted silently as they moved, leaving a clear path through the den's shadows. Alara's mind swirled with anticipation and anxiety. Who could she possibly meet here? Another wolf? Another human? Another creature of power? They stopped before a massive alcove where the snow had melted to reveal a hidden pool of warm water. The Alpha gestured toward it, and a figure stepped forward from the shadows. A wolf, sleek and silver, with eyes that gleamed like molten silver in the dim light. "This is Lyric," the Alpha King said, "one of the oldest and most loyal in the pack. You will learn from him and he will guide you." The silver wolf approached slowly, sniffing the air around her. Elara froze, unsure of what to do. The white wolf nudged her hand again, a reminder of trust and instinct. She extended her hand slowly, fingers brushing against the silver wolf's fur. Lyric growled softly, then nudged her palm gently, accepting her. Relief flooded her chest. She could feel the bond, the recognition of her place in the pack, the acknowledgement of her presence, and the first stirrings of belonging. "Good," the Alpha King murmured, stepping closer, so close that she could feel the heat radiating from him. "Now you understand part of your path. You are Omega, yes, but you are also a student of the pack. You must learn the rules, the rituals, and the responsibilities that come with power." Elara nodded, though her mind reeled with questions. And you?" she asked cautiously. "What is your role in all of this?" His gaze softened just slightly, a flicker of vulnerability hiding beneath the Alpha's commanding exterior. "I am Alpha," he said simply. "King of this pack, keeper of the balance, and the one who has claimed you." The word struck her like a thunderbolt. She had known instinctively that she was not merely following a wolf through the snow. She had known there was something larger at play. But hearing it, feeling it, understanding it, it made her knees weak, her mind spin, and her heart race with a mixture of fear and undeniable attraction. You have claimed me?" she whispered, voice trembling. "Yes," he replied, his tone firm yet intimate. "You are mine, as the Omega is always bound to the Alpha. Your destiny is intertwined with mine. Your strength will support the pack, and the pack will protect you. But above all, your heart will learn to follow mine." Elara's chest tightened. She had never been wanted, never been needed. And now in this den, in the presence of the Alpha King, she felt an intense magnetic pull that left her breathless. She wanted to resist, to question, to flee. But every instinct, every fiber of her being told her to stay, to trust, to accept the bond that had been placed upon her. The Alpha King extended his hand slowly. "Come closer," he murmured. "Feel the bond. Understand it. Accept it." Her hand trembled as she reached toward him. When their fingers brushed, a spark shot through her, raw and powerful. The warmth of him, the command in his presence, the unspoken claim, it was overwhelming. She gasped softly, her senses ablaze, every nerve on fire. "You feel it," he whispered. "The bond between Alpha and Omega is not just instinct. It is life, blood, and destiny. It cannot be broken, only accepted." Elara's heart raced. She did not fully understand, could not fully grasp the enormity of what was happening. But she did understand one thing. She was no longer alone. She was no longer helpless. She was part of something far larger, far older, and far more powerful than she had ever imagined. And in that instant, standing in the den beneath the frost, surrounded by the pack, by wolves, by the Alpha King himself, she realized she was home. Chapter 7. Flames beneath the snow. The den had grown quiet again, but Elara sensed that peace was fleeting. Even among the wolves, among the Alpha King's presence, she felt the stirrings of something unseen. Danger lurking beyond the safety of the den walls. The pack had accepted her cautiously, but instinct whispered that this calm was only temporary. "You feel it too, don't you?" The Alpha King's voice rumbled in the quiet, low and intimate. He was standing behind her, heat brushing her back like a living force. "The storm is never truly gone in this forest, and neither are threats to the pack." Elara swallowed, her heart quickening. I feel it," she admitted. She had sensed movement, a ripple in the air, subtle yet unnerving. Something or someone was out there watching, waiting, testing. "Good," he murmured. "An Omega must sense more than sight, more than strength. You must feel the currents, the warnings, the hidden dangers that lurk even in calm." Her fingers brushed the white wolf at her side. The creature nudged her hand and she drew a steadying breath. She didn't yet understand how, but she could feel the tension in the pack, the vibrations in the earth, the warning in the air. It was as though the forest itself whispered secrets to her. The Alpha King stepped closer, his presence overwhelming, magnetic. "You are learning," he said softly, "and that is why you must stay near me." Before she could respond, a sudden cry shattered the silence. A shrill, frantic howl, unlike anything she had heard before. The pack tensed instantly, growls and snarls erupting in a ripple of tension that electrified the den. Wolves lunged forward, eyes blazing with instinct and fury. Alara's pulse hammered in her chest. "But what is happening?" she gasped, instinctively stepping back. "The pack is threatened," the Alpha King said, voice sharp and commanding. "And now, you will see what it truly means to be Omega." The ground shook subtly, and through the open den entrance shadows moved, fast, coordinated, and deadly. A rival pack, larger than the Alpha King's own, had approached, their snarls cutting through the cold air like blades. They were hunters, warriors, invaders, and they had no regard for anyone who stood in their path. "Stay behind me," he commanded, stepping forward, a living wall of power and dominance. His presence was palpable, pressing against Alara, commanding her to trust, to submit, to follow instinct. The white wolf bristled beside her, growling low, warning, protective. Alara placed her hand on its fur, feeling its heartbeat, its strength, its loyalty. Her own instincts surged. She could feel the forest, the wind, the vibrations of movement, the approach of the rival pack, and she understood, in some primal way, that she had a role to play. "You must command them," the Alpha King said, his voice nearly a growl now. "Not with words, but with presence. Let them feel your power. Let them feel the bond between Alpha and Omega." Alara's knees shook, her mind racing. I don't know if I can—" "You can," he interrupted, stepping closer, his chest brushing hers, warmth searing through the frozen air. "Feel me, feel the pack, feel the bond, and they will obey, or they will falter." Heart hammering, she closed her eyes, focusing on the rhythms around her, the wolves, the earth, the Alpha, and her own heartbeat. A vibration surged through her, raw and commanding, and she extended her hands instinctively toward the pack. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly the rival wolves froze, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. They could sense the bond, the power, the unbreakable connection between Omega and Alpha. The Alpha King's growl reverberated through the clearing, deep and commanding, amplifying her own presence. "You see?" he murmured, voice low and intimate. "You are not weak. You are the balance. You are the pulse that steadies the pack. Own it." Alara's chest swelled with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She could feel it, the raw power of the bond, the connection that made her more than blind, more than human, more than fragile. She was Omega, and she was not helpless. The rival pack hesitated, then backed away slowly, recognizing the force they could not challenge. The Alpha King stepped forward, eyes glowing, chest rising with controlled fury. A final growl rolled through the den, commanding and absolute, and the threat dissolved, leaving only silence and the heavy charged air of survival. Alara sank to the ground, trembling, sweat and snow mixing on her skin. The white wolf pressed against her, grounding her, its warmth a lifeline amid the adrenaline storm. The Alpha King stepped closer, towering, immense, and utterly commanding. "You did well," he murmured, voice low, almost intimate. His fingers brushed her shoulder, a touch that burned more than the cold ever could. "You sensed the danger. You acted. You protected the pack." Her breath came in ragged gasps. I felt it. "With you," she whispered. He smiled faintly, a dark, possessive curl of his lips. "Good, that is the bond. That is your power. That is the beginning of what it means to be Omega, and mine." Her pulse raced, desire and fear intermingling in a swirl she could not untangle. She had survived the trial of instinct, courage, and presence. But the greater challenge was only beginning. Understanding her bond with the Alpha King, mastering her own power, and embracing a destiny that would demand everything from her. The rival pack had left, but the echo of danger lingered. Alara looked to the Alpha King, sensing the unspoken truth. He had claimed her, tested her, and she had begun to rise to meet him. And in the quiet aftermath, she realized something undeniable. She was no longer merely following a howl through the snow. She was walking toward destiny, hand in hand with a man who was far more than human. And in the frozen wilderness beneath the frost and snow, a bond had ignited, wild, untamed, and impossible to ignore. Chapter 8. Whispers in the Frost. The night had fallen over the den, cloaking the world in darkness. Yet the forest seemed alive, breathing with a pulse she could feel even through her blindness. The white wolf lay curled beside her, its warmth grounding her trembling body. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the open entrance, melting against her cloak and hair, carrying the faint scent of the forest into the den. The Alpha King stood at the edge of the den, a shadow of power and authority, watching her with eyes that burned like amber in the dim light. He had not moved closer since the confrontation with the rival pack, yet she could feel his presence like a tangible force pressing against her chest, compelling her attention, pulling at her soul. "You are restless," he observed, voice low, measured, intimate. "The bond stirs you. The pack stirs you, and so do I." Alara swallowed hard, sensing the weight behind his words. She had survived the trials, faced danger, and yet she could not quiet the storm raging inside her. The pulse of the Alpha's presence, the rhythm of the pack, the whispers of instinct, all of it combined into a sensation she could not name. Fear, exhilaration, desire, and a strange, grounding sense of belonging battled for dominance in her chest. She began, voice trembling. "I feel something I don't understand. The pack, the bond, you." He stepped closer, the heat of him brushing against her shoulder, making her knees weak. "It is natural," he said, his voice softening slightly, intimate yet commanding. "The Omega bond is not just instinct. It is emotion, desire, trust, and surrender. You feel it because you are beginning to accept it." She swallowed, heart hammering. "But what if I fail? What if I'm not strong enough?" "You will not fail," he replied, voice deep and unwavering. "The bond protects you, guides you, but you must also guide yourself. Strength comes not from fighting, but from accepting your role, your power, and me." The words sent shivers down her spine. She had never been claimed, never been desired, never been told she belonged, and now in the quiet of the den beneath the snow beside the white wolf, she realized that her life had shifted irrevocably. She belonged not just to the pack, but to the Alpha King who had claimed her heart even before she understood what that meant. "You," she whispered, voice barely audible. You are overwhelming." He smiled faintly, a curl of darkness in his expression that made her pulse race. "And yet," he murmured, "you are beginning to rise to meet me. That is what I need from you, Omega. Not perfection, not submission alone, but courage, instinct, and the willingness to follow." Her hand moved instinctively to the white wolf, drawing strength from its warmth, its steady heartbeat, its silent reassurance. She could feel the Alpha King's gaze on her, relentless and magnetic, and in that moment, she understood something primal. She wanted to rise, to stand, to meet him, not just as the Omega, but as something stronger, something more complete. "You will learn," he said, stepping closer, so close she could feel the heat of his breath, the brush of his presence, "and the pack will teach you. But the greatest lesson will come from me, from the bond we share, from the connection you cannot yet name, from the instinct that binds you to me." Her pulse raced, her chest tightening with a mix of fear and desire. I don't know if I'm ready," she admitted, voice small, vulnerable. "You are," he said, voice low, intimate yet commanding. "You may not understand it yet, but the bond chose you long before you stepped into the snow. It will not let you fail, not while I am here." The white wolf nudged her hand again, grounding her, reminding her of her strength and instincts. She drew a deep breath, letting the warmth and power of the Alpha's presence flow through her, letting herself feel the connection that pulsed between them. And then, the unthinkable happened. The Alpha King leaned closer, close enough that his lips brushed the edge of her ear, warm and commanding. "Omega," he whispered, voice low and intimate. "Do you feel it? The bond? The pull? The inevitability of what is between us?" Her knees trembled. She did feel it. The pull, the magnetic tension, the storm of desire and trust that surged through her. I think I do," she whispered, breath catching in her throat. "Good," he murmured, "because it will only grow. With each trial, with each challenge, with each night spent beneath the frost and snow, the bond will deepen, and soon, you will understand that you were never meant to walk alone." Alara's chest tightened. She had survived so much, faced so many trials, yet nothing had prepared her for this, the emotional, primal pull of the Alpha King, the intimate, undeniable connection, and the rising awareness of her own power as Omega. "You are mine," he said softly, almost a caress, "as I am yours, and together, we will face the storms to come." The den was silent again, the pack resting, the white wolf curled beside her, and the Alpha King standing close enough that she could feel every heartbeat, every breath. And in that quiet, charged moment, Ilara realized she was no longer blind in every sense of the word. She could not see his face, yet she felt him fully, his power, his dominance, his desire, and his claim. And she understood something deep and irrevocable. She belonged to him, and he belonged to her. The storm outside had passed, but the storm inside, the fire of desire, the pull of destiny, and the awakening of her Omega powers had only just begun. Chapter 9. The Howl That Shook the Sky. The morning broke pale and silent, but Ilara woke with a weight pressing on her chest. The air in the den felt thick, charged, heavy, as though the forest itself held its breath. The white wolf lay still beside her, ears flicking restlessly. Something was wrong. She could feel it. The Alpha King's presence, usually steady and unshakable, pulsed with restrained fury. She could sense him pacing near the mouth of the den, his energy sharp and uncontained. When he finally spoke, his voice rumbled through the stone walls like thunder before a storm. "They've crossed into our territory." Ilara sat upright, fingers gripping the furs beneath her. "Who has?" "The Bloodfang pack." His tone was laced with disgust. "They want to challenge the throne. To take what is mine, what is ours." The word ours hit her chest like a spark, but the warmth it carried was chased away by dread. "There many?" she asked softly. "Too many," he admitted. "But they are desperate. Desperation makes wolves reckless and dangerous." The white wolf pressed closer to her side, letting out a low growl that vibrated through her bones. "I can fight," Ilara blurted out before she could stop herself. "I can help." The Alpha King turned toward her, his steps heavy, deliberate. When he spoke, his voice was softer but no less commanding. "You will help," he said. "But not with claws or teeth. With instinct, with the bond," her heart hammered. "I don't understand." He knelt before her, his hands gripping her shoulders firmly, grounding her. "You feel what I feel. The pack's pulse runs through you. You are our center, Ilara. The calm in the storm. When the Bloodfangs strike, their rage will tear through the forest. The only thing that can hold this pack together." His voice dropped. "Is you." The weight of his words filled her, terrifying and exhilarating at once. The den erupted into chaos soon after, wolves preparing for battle, their growls low and rhythmic, echoing through the frozen forest. The Alpha King stepped forward, every inch the ruler he was born to be, commanding, powerful, breathtaking. The bond between them pulsed, growing stronger with every heartbeat. He shifted in a ripple of white light and muscle, his wolf form bursting forth, immense and magnificent, fur white as moonlight and eyes burning gold. The white wolf, the very one she had followed through the blizzard. For a heartbeat, she could not breathe. The Alpha King, the white wolf who had guided her, saved her, had been one and the same all along. "You," she whispered, voice breaking with wonder and disbelief. "It was you." He looked back at her, eyes blazing, a growl of acknowledgement rumbling deep in his chest. Then he turned and leapt into the storm. The battle began with an explosion of sound, snarls, howls, the crunch of snow beneath claws. Ilara stood frozen at the entrance, her body trembling with instinct and fear. She could not see the fight, but she could feel it, the clash of power, the tearing of the earth, the pain and fury that bled through the bond. Her knees hit the ground as the force of it nearly overwhelmed her. She clutched her chest, gasping as waves of pain, not hers but his, crashed through her body. The Alpha was wounded. "No," she whispered fiercely. "No, you will not fall." The white wolf beside her howled, a long, keening sound that cut through the din. Something inside her broke open. The world blurred, then brightened. She could see, not with her eyes, but with something deeper. She saw flashes, white fur streaked with blood, the Alpha locked in combat with a massive black wolf whose eyes burned crimson. The Bloodfang Alpha. Their snarls echoed through her mind like thunder. "Hold," she whispered to herself. "Hold, my king." The power surged again, stronger this time, burning through her veins like fire and ice combined. She screamed, not in fear but in defiance, and the sound that tore from her throat was not human. It was a howl. Low, haunting, and powerful enough to make the very earth tremble. The pack froze mid-battle. The sound spread like light through the forest, weaving through every wolf's mind and body, filling them with purpose, unity, and courage. The wounded rose. The faltering found their strength. The Alpha King threw his opponent back with renewed force, his golden eyes flaring bright as the moon. He turned, met her invisible gaze across the battlefield, and howled in answer, a sound of victory, power, and devotion. Their bond ignited fully then, white fire burning between them, unbreakable and ancient. The blood fangs fled. Their cries faded into the snow, swallowed by silence and defeat. When it was over, the Alpha King returned, his fur streaked with blood but his presence steady and unyielding. He shifted back to his human form as he approached her, towering and magnificent even in exhaustion. Ilara fell to her knees, tears slipping down her cheeks. "You were the White Wolf," she whispered, "the one who led me through the storm." He reached for her face, his hand gentle, reverent. "And you were the voice I heard in that same storm," he murmured, "blind, but stronger than any light I've ever known." She pressed her hand against his chest, feeling the steady beat beneath his skin. "I felt your pain," she whispered. "It burned through me." He smiled faintly, a rare softness breaking through his regal composure. "That's because the bond is complete now. You are not just mine, Ilara." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I am yours." Outside, the snow began to fall again, soft, peaceful, cleansing. The pack gathered, heads bowed in respect, their Alpha and Omega standing side by side, the storm's survivors, the heart and soul of Silverpine. And as Ilara leaned against him, his arm wrapping protectively around her, she realized the truth that had been whispering to her all along. She had followed the White Wolf's howl through the blizzard, but it wasn't the sound that had saved her. It was the soul calling her home. Chapter 10. The moon remembers. The blizzard was gone. In its place, a fragile peace settled over the Silverpine lands. The snow lay untouched now, glimmering like powdered glass beneath the morning sun. The world looked cleansed, reborn, as though the forest itself had exhaled after holding its breath for too long. Ilara stood at the edge of the cliffs overlooking the valley, her sightless eyes turned toward the wind. The sense carried through it told her more than sight ever could. The damp bark of the pines, the metallic tang of blood fading into earth, the heartbeat of the pack moving below like one living creature. And beneath it all, she felt him, the Alpha King. His presence rippled through the bond, strong and alive, though tinged with exhaustion. The battle had taken its toll. She could sense the wounds deep within him, not just of flesh but of spirit, a burden that no victory could wash away. She turned as his footsteps approached, slow and deliberate against the frozen ground. He stopped behind her, and the warmth of his nearness melted through the cold air like sunlight through frost. "The pack is healing," he said quietly. "We lost some, but not as many as I feared." Ilara nodded, fingers curling in her cloak. "You saved them?" "No," he murmured. "We did." For a long moment there was only silence, the kind that hummed with meaning. Then he stepped closer, his breath brushing her ear as he whispered, "You shouldn't have come out during the battle. You could have died." "I felt you dying," she whispered back. "How could I have stayed away?" He exhaled sharply, a sound between a sigh and a growl. "You should hate me for bringing you into this world, for binding you to me." Ilara turned toward his voice, her hands finding his chest, her fingertips tracing the scars still warm beneath his skin. "You didn't bind me," she said softly. "You freed me. Before you, I was trapped in the dark. Now," her voice trembled, "now I see everything." The Alpha's composure cracked. His hand came up, trembling slightly, resting over hers. "You see me?" She smiled faintly. "Always." He drew her close then, not as a ruler, not as a savior, but as a man who had been lost too long in his own solitude. Their foreheads touched and the world stilled. Through their bond she felt it all, his pride, his sorrow, his fierce devotion. The storm of his life finally calming. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. He frowned slightly. "Hear what?" "The forest," she said. "It's breathing again," and it was. The snow-laden branches whispered softly, as though the trees themselves were exhaling in relief. A faint howl rose in the distance, one of the younger wolves calling out beneath the dawn. Then another answered, then another. Soon the valley echoed with harmony, the voices of the pack singing to the sky. The Alpha King stepped back, looking toward the horizon, his profile etched in gold light. "They're calling to the moon," he said quietly. "No," Alara corrected gently. "They're calling to you." He turned toward her again, his golden eyes softening, the faintest trace of a smile ghosting his lips. "Then what are you calling to, little Omega?" Her lips curved. "The one I followed through the storm." He laughed, low and rough, a sound that carried warmth and pain and love all at once. Then he tilted his head back and howled. The sound was deep and ancient, shaking the snow from the pines, rising high until it became one with the wind. And though Alara could not see the moon, she could feel it, full, watchful, remembering. She joined him, her voice weaving into his like thread through silk. Together, they howled, not in grief, not in rage, but in remembrance and belonging. When the echo faded, the Alpha lowered his head and looked at her, really looked, as if seeing the woman beneath the mystery. "Alara," he said softly, "what did you see when you followed that howl through the blizzard?" She smiled, a single tear slipping down her cheek. "I saw nothing," she whispered. "But I felt everything." He brushed the tear away with his thumb. "And now?" "Now," she breathed, "I feel home." He pulled her into his arms, holding her as the snow began to fall once more. Not fierce this time, but gentle, blessing the earth it touched. The pack's voices faded into the distance, leaving only the wind, the forest, and the quiet pulse between two souls who had found each other in the storm. And somewhere above, the moon lingered, silver and knowing, watching over the blind Omega who had followed a howl through the blizzard, and the Alpha King who had waited, unknowingly, for her to arrive. They say the moon remembers those who find love in her storm. When the wind howls through silver pine on winter nights, the wolves still answer, a song of devotion, loss, and destiny. And if you listen closely enough, you can hear her voice among them, the blind Omega whose heart saw what the world could not.